up, everybody? Welcome to SWAT MMA. It's episode 174. I'm Jarrod here with Paul.
What up?
Today we're going to be talking all about Conor McGregor, USADA, celebrity/influencer boxing, and the impact all of these things are currently having on the combat sports world in general. Before we get to that, you know what time it is, though. Grab that stash, fire it on up. Let's get into the weed of the week.
Smoke weed every day.
What you got fired up, Paul?
So today we have, I figured this would be a fitting strain for the MMA theme here. So I picked up some of this grapples. So what this is indica dominant strain crossed with Gary Payton and apple. So
I've never even heard of this strain before. This is brand new to me.
This one's coming in at a fucking hefty 36%, which will fuck your whole life up.
You said 36% THC for real? God damn, that's very impressive.
Yep. It's by West Coast Cure. I've not had any of their strains yet, but
no,
I have smoked Gary Payton, and that shit usually is pretty hefty, and it puts you
I
down
like that
too.
Gary Payton.
Yeah. But I like that shit so far.
You got them Supersonics colors on right now, almost.
Yeah, close enough.
Close
enough. But
yeah. Oh shit, that's nice, man.
Mm-hmm.
What else we got? I got a little Tangerine Dream over here in the tray. And we had a little bit of Lake Effect we were smoking on earlier.
Nice.
Yep. Let's go ahead and while we're getting high on some drugs, let's talk about drugs. The big news across MMA this week was the United States Anti-Doping Agency making a public statement saying that they are done after December 31st with the UFC, and they basically blamed it on the Conor McGregor situation, saying that the UFC had been trying to get exemptions from McGregor. They did this the same day McGregor re-entered the testing pool.
Yeah, it was almost like back-to-back announcements. It was like
10
minutes. Oh, McGregor's back into the pool. 10 minutes later, USADA's out of the UFC. It was very weird.
Well, when USADA made their announcement, they used the McGregor announcement to then back into the fact that they were leaving. And from what I just read, Hunter Campbell says that McGregor had his onboarding call with USADA. They have some sort of process once you re-enter the pool. You have some sort of onboarding telephone call, okay? And then literally 5 minutes later, they released their statement. And he said, and that showed that they had already had the statement drafted and ready to go before any of this nonsense with McGregor re-entering the pool that they're trying to spin it as now.
Yeah. I think it's all a bunch of bullshit, to be honest, because I think USADA has had tons and tons and tons of just weird scenarios where they've either destroyed careers of some of these fighters and or altered them based on science that would then shortly after be, modified, like the whole John Jones situation. You got the whole Tom Lawler situation, Jessica Penne. You have Alexander Volkanovski, who we'll talk about later in the show.
Josh Barnett.
Yeah, Josh
he
Barnett.
Sued for 2 years.
Yep.
Cleared his name, and they never even issued a public statement about it.
Even Nick Diaz at the beginning of the USADA program had 2 violations for not reporting his whereabouts. Like this whole reporting the whereabouts thing, the drug test. Even Paulo Costa. Paulo Costa was tested at 5 in the morning the day of weight cuts. Volkanovski was tested at 3 in the morning the day of weigh-ins. Like that kind of shit is just not conducive to like catching cheaters. You know what I mean? You're not gonna catch a cheater at 5 a.m. during a weight cut before the fucking fight. Like, come on. What drug are you taking? What steroid are you taking? 24 hours before a fight that are going to make such a difference inside the cage that USADA needs to show up to your house at 4 a.m. before a fight that's going to be, at 10 p.m. the next day and, ruin your sleep cycle, ruin your, or interrupt your weight cut and shit like that.
Dude, they forced Tim Kennedy to shower naked in front of their urine collector. They, you mentioned faulty science. let's take the most public case that the most casual MMA fan has heard of, and that's John Jones and the picograms.
Yeah.
Now that very situation is not at fault. The exact same thing happens. He doesn't even get tested for that.
Mm-hmm.
And Hunter Campbell released some sort of statement that a Dr. Eichner, I believe I'm pronouncing that right, has basically come out and said now that studies show that like tainted supplements and the substances that they're tainted with, they can literally show up with the picograms years later. They've proven it now on test. They've tested subjects years later that are still showing positive for the same picograms that they proved came from tainted supplements.
Yeah, they said up to almost like a lifetime's worth of tests. But the thing is, too, I think that when you talk about USADA, is also you have to look at their punishment, in which and how they punish the guys,
It's
whether
incredibly
it's, you know,
unfair.
their whole Olympic cycle suspensions, whether it's like 2 years, 4 years, 8 years. That's just not doesn't make any sense in the world of fighting. You know, these guys are already faced with such a small window of opportunity to begin with, and then you put them on the sidelines 2 years, 4 years, 8 years. Like that's just ridiculous. I mean, let's think about it this way. Although he's come back and things have been great, and you know he's still the greatest of all time. Let's imagine John Jones took those, you know what, now close to 4 years that he was fighting back and forth with USADA and a litany of, you know, situations with them. Um, let's say he came back and he got knocked out by Cyril Gahn, or even let's take it even further back, he gets knocked out by Alexander Gustafsson the second time they fight. Like, that's the kind of shit that nobody talks about. It's always the punishments are always just, but they just aren't always. You know what I mean?
It makes no sense to take the Olympic model where you have competitors who compete every 2 to 4 years. So those suspensions make sense because that means you're out one round of competition, basically. And then apply that to athletes who compete
4 or 5
around
times.
3 times a
Yeah.
year on average, some more, some a little less.
Yeah.
I mean, if you apply the same model, they should be out one competitive cycle, which would literally be a fight or two.
Yeah.
Not
6 months
years.
to a year makes sense. 2 to 4 makes no sense.
It's been a terrible, flawed system since the beginning, and people like Luke Thomas are simply being proven right. And he's been anti-USADA from the beginning. And right now, basically, all of his stances have been proven true for the most part. And
Yeah.
and his overall stance is I think, been proven the correct one. I was never a fan of this, and that doesn't mean we want athletes to be all fucked up on drugs, but this isn't the way
Yeah,
to
no, I'm
go
not
about and
asking
do
for
it.
juice heads. I'm just saying at the same time there's certain things in which, you know, you have we'll just go back to Conor McGregor. He's a perfect example. You know, he has a compound fracture of his leg. He ends up having an agreement with USADA that he leaves the pool. He takes some supplements and stuff that is going to improve the healing time for his bones to mend back together. And now they want to use that to say that he's trying to do some kind of anabolic steroids to cheat, and he shouldn't be allowed to fight until 6 months, and he gets all that out of his system. Like, it's not it's not about that. It was never about, you know, trying to uh, like enhance his performance in any way. It was about healing.
Right,
And
and
now
they
that
knew this.
yeah, and also Conor McGregor is also one of the most tested athletes in the UFC prior to this.
And he is taking all of these supplements under the best medical care that money can buy.
And also under USADA supervision.
They're acting like he was doing shady deals in the backroom gyms with gigantic bodybuilders to get
Yeah.
secret juice so he could look buff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's not the fucking situation.
Well, not only is it not the situation, but like I said, under their supervision, there was something that was a plan not only Connor, but the UFC and USADA all got together, and he was super transparent in what he was doing to, you know, facilitate his ability to actually heal and come back at 100%. We've seen all these guys that have come back from these compound fractures and just not been able to ever look the same again. And
Yeah.
that's part of the problem is, and going back to something Luke Thomas had said before, and quoted Hunter Campbell, the UFC wants to have some kind of window of opportunity for guys who face these major injuries to get the medical care they need without having to face, these lengthy suspensions.
Yeah, Hunter Campbell's also came out with that statement that they're open to the idea of athletes being allowed to take these things when they have these devastating injuries, which is just common sense. And so they have a new company coming in to handle the anti-doping. They've hired a former FBI agent with the last name of Pirot, who's apparently got impeccable credentials as far as his integrity goes, to oversee this whole thing. And we don't really know what that's going to look like yet. But Novinsky himself has come out. Jeff Novinsky, handles the drug testing side for the UFC, for those that aren't aware. And he's come out and said that the Olympic model certainly doesn't work.
Yeah.
And so I don't think we have to worry about these insane 4 and 2 year suspensions being a part of the new system. And most likely there's not going to be this whereabouts app thing, I would hope, because that was one of my big problems from the beginning. That's insane. Imagine living your life where every time you went somewhere you had to notify a drug testing company.
Yeah.
You're going to go to California on vacation, you're going to go over to the store, you're going to fucking go work out here, you're always texting or doing things on the drug testing app. That's nuts.
Well,
so hopefully those will be gone. And what we can hope for, Paul, to wrap up my point, is just these guys should have to show up at a certain fucking time and piss in a cup or take a blood test or whatever it is they determine, and then that's it. And their level of responsibility should stop there. And if they're finding some way to cheat the system, that falls on the drug company to fucking beat that with their testing. That's the whole point of this shit.
Yeah.
You can't invade their personal life like this to try to catch them sneaking. Just fuck that. Do your job. They show up, they pee, you do your job, you test, and we can all move on.
And it's not like in the sport of boxing or any of these other combat sports that USADA is someone that has cleaned. Like, don't get me wrong, there was a drug problem in mixed martial arts when USADA came in, and that's undeniable. But to say that what their practices within their time with the UFC were just all perfect is just crazy.
Well, and I'm going to be echoing Luke Thomas's statements here, paraphrasing a bit. USADA's been with the UFC for 8 years. So we have injury statistics prior to USADA, and we have 8 years of injury statistics after USADA. And Luke Thomas, I'm going to echo this. Show me the stats that says that they improved any of that, because that's what we're told. This is for fighter safety. What if somebody gets hurt? What if somebody dies? We have to make sure everybody's safe. Well, then we should see noticeable difference after 8 fucking years on injuries. They should be an impact. They say, look, this is what we've done in the sport of mixed martial arts. This is us before. This is us after. Look, drug testing has made this a safer sport.
Yeah.
There's not a shred of it. There's not one fucking thing that they can point to.
Yeah. I don't think
so
by any means been any safer.
What are we doing then?
Yeah. Yep. And I do think that another kind of layer into all this is the statement they made where they kind of, passed the buck onto Conor McGregor for, all this mess. I think that if I was him and his team, that I would definitely pursue some kind of defamation case against USADA, because it's just childish.
Well, the UFC's threatened it. Hunter Campbell's come out and gave him a deadline to retract that information or face legal action. And they came out and said, we stand by our statements, and that was the only thing. Because they really threw him under the bus.
Yeah.
They do make it sound like Conor's up to no good. And honestly, there's a lot of people who think that this eye test is a real thing, and that just because Conor is bigger now that he must be taking steroids. And that's not applicable in my bro science mind. I'm not going to claim to be any expert on this, but let's get real here. It's not, you don't need steroids to put on 15 pounds of muscle unless you're already maxed out for your body weight and your body size. You know what I mean? If you're a fucking bodybuilder who's 285 and you somehow manage to magically put on another 40 pounds of muscle, you're probably using steroids. If you're a dude that weighs 160 and you get up to 175 and you maintain a low body weight, that doesn't mean you're on fucking steroids.
Yeah. And I don't even think he's put on 15 pounds of muscle. He's probably put little like 10 pounds of muscle on,
For
and then
real.
just some mass in general.
Let's just stop. He's not abnormal. He's not a heavyweight now. Then we'd be like, oh shit, look, Conor's 220.
Or
Oh fuck, he's on
let's
roids.
not even take it to that extreme. He's not even a 185 pounder now.
No, it's
He's not even, to be honest, like he's not even a 170. He should
I'm
still
tired
be
of this
fighting
shit.
155. Like the size is not something that is just like so like, oh wow, Conor McGregor went to summer camp one year and came back fucking 20 pounds heavier and is fighting up 2 weight classes.
right. He's not. It's not like like actors who definitely have been known to take steroids to get ready for a role. It's not illegal, but you got some guy who's never been buff at all, and then suddenly 6 months later he's fucking ripped and gigantic. Well, yeah, that's probably he used some roids to bulk up 40 pounds, things like this. But those are abnormal changes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But if a guy goes from a $150 to a $170, just stop. That's not
Just stop.
insane.
It's just not applicable.
I'm
can't-
tired of it.
Yeah. It's retarded. Yeah, so I think the UFC will be better off in the end.
Yeah, I do too. I think that they've learned their lesson on a lot of these things, and for once they will do some things better. I think it's still going to be flawed and probably be fucked up in some ways. But if they
Yeah.
get rid of these ridiculous punishments, they allow a window for athletes who've been hurt very badly, and get rid of this whereabouts thing, these would all be pretty positive.
Yeah. The whereabouts thing is ridiculous. I just think that, and the fact that you could get suspended for the whereabouts thing was even more ridiculous in my mind. Because you didn't tell us where you were. Come on.
Well, this USADA news that came out, Paul, was really the end of a whole series of major announcements
Yeah, it's just the tip
to
of
the
the iceberg.
UFC, most notably around the upcoming pay-per-view, which is number what?
UFC 294.
And that's the one in Abu Dhabi that was formerly headlined by Islam Makhachev defending his title in a rematch against former champ Oliveira, with a co-main, so Paulo Costa taking on Khamzat Chimaev at 185 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And then everything went crazy. Paulo Costa got staph in his elbow, or bursitis, had to have like 3 surgeries. He's out.
Mm-hmm.
Who do they pick, Paul?
Kamaru Usman, which I think is ultimately the worst matchup for Hamzat in this situation.
At 185.
185 as well.
With the winner getting a title shot, supposedly.
Mm-hmm. And that's a whole nother conversation. Supposedly, Israel Adesanya is walking away from the game and all this shit.
Yeah, he said he's not going to fight again for a long time.
Yeah. So, with that being said, how do you feel about this?
I'm torn. I don't know how either of these guys gets a title shot off beating the other. I don't know how Chimaev earns a shot at middleweight by beating the former welterweight champion in a short notice fight. And I don't know how the former welterweight champion gets a shot at the middleweight title by beating a guy whose last fight was against Kevin Holland a year ago, who's making his debut essentially now in a new weight class, although I know he's had fights there before, but in the UFC he's really been focused on 170. Am I wrong?
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, I know why they're saying this, because Dana White really wants Chimaev to get the title shot because he sees dollar signs with
And
him
then
as
also
champ.
he can also sell, in the case that Kamaru wins, he could also sell a rematch between Strickland and Kamaru Usman that makes sense on paper, and also Usman's already has a built-in fan base. He already is like a former champion and someone who's seen in the, at least in the hardcores. And honestly, he's had some commercial success as well, I'd say, with fans. So I think it's they know that those are the two, like, let's be honest. Although he's a good fighter, although he's deserving of the title fight, Dricus du Plessis without Israel Adesanya attached to his name in that title fight is not as sexy of an option as someone like Chimaev or Usman.
It's unfortunate because he's the clear number one contender.
Yeah.
It's petty Dana White bullshit because the guy refused to fight with an injured foot on a short notice against Israel Adesanya. It's fucking retarded. It It makes me angry, but it is what it is. There's no changing it. That's how the UFC operates. They don't hand out title shots based on merit, and that is what's going to happen. As far as the fight goes, I mean, I have no idea what Usman looks like at this weight. I mean, it's going to boil down to the wrestling.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Alright.
I feel like that's going to be the X factor in this fight. And you
Can-
know what I'd like to really compare this matchup to is I think it's going to go very similar to how Burns and Chimaev went, because we knew Burns had a high level grappling, like um, repertoire, whether it's jiu-jitsu or just his wrestling in general, and you kind of have that same idea with Usman. Usman, he's an elite grappler. Maybe not on the jiu-jitsu side, but on the wrestling side, which
what
is
are
all,
his wrestling credentials? I forget about them sometimes.
he's fucking 3-time All-American, college All-American, was an alternate for the Olympic team.
Can he stop Chimaev's takedowns, you think?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
I mean, Burns did a pretty good job of that, right?
Yeah, Burns did a good job of it.
And Burns, comparatively to Usman's wrestling,
yeah,
is not on the same level. Am I
I
wrong?
don't think so. No.
I mean, at
Yeah.
least with their accolades, they're not. I mean,
Yeah, accolades wise, yeah, no.
So, and we have not seen Chimaev against an elite American wrestler yet,
No.
have we?
Uh-uh.
Okay.
But I will say that the way in which both of them wrestle is very different. I'd say Chimaev is more of like a Greco-Roman style wrestler where he has good top control. He looks for big, um, you know, big velocity, big like momentum level like takedowns. You know what I mean? You're not gonna see him like what we do see a lot in Kamaru Usman's fights is him work for his takedowns. You know, he's gonna give you a single leg up on the cage and he's gonna work you down, and there's just really nothing you can do about it. Chimaev is more of a I'm gonna take you down in the open mat and I'm gonna throw you fucking over my head, slam you, and then you know impose my will. And Kamaru is more of a much more calculated, much more like educated grappler, I would say, in how he like gets a takedown. He's not always worried about the first shot. He's a big shot, get stuffed, reshoot,
Okay.
work the cage, work the body on your way down. Well, I mean, I think we saw that a lot with his fights against Colby Covington and Tyron Woodley, where it was like when they were in grappling situations, he was able to use some of his striking and dirty boxing to like open holes in his grappling game. And I don't know, this is going to be very interesting. It's very, very interesting on the grappling side. And that's why I kind of, what I was alluding to before, why I feel like it's going to go down like the Burns Chimaev fight. I think it's going to end up being a firefight because both guys are going to kind of cancel each other's wrestling out. And it's going to be who's got what next.
Well, when it comes to the striking, I mean, Chimaev's got 2 inches in height. Usman's 6 feet. Chimaev's 6'2". However, Usman's got an inch on reach. Usman's 76 to Chimaev's 75-inch reach. So I don't know if the size is really going to come into play.
Usman's 6. Oh, I thought you said Usman was 6'2".
No, Usman's 6 feet tall.
Is he 6 feet?
According to Wikipedia. I mean, he doesn't seem like it. I thought he was like 5'9" for some reason.
That's.
But
I
maybe
thought
I'm
he was
thinking
like
Woodley.
I was thinking like he was like 5'10".
But I mean, yeah. Now that's the Wikipedia page. I didn't double check, and I'm
Interesting.
assuming that can be somewhat accurate.
Yeah, I was thinking that the height differential was going to be a lot more substantial. Like,
Right.
I thought Usman was more like 5'10", and Chimaev was about 6'2", 6'3". But yeah, I don't. The thing is with Usman is he's got a real like wiry body. You know what I mean? Like he has like long limbs, long legs, long arms, and it is kind of show like the way he grapples. Kind of like you could tell he has like he's got more of a stocky body, and he's got he's kind of like a spider kind of in that way, and that's a lot of how he grapples too. He's big on the like low level body lock, holding you up on the cage, shit like that.
Well, I'm definitely going to be rooting for Kamaru Usman here.
Yeah, me too.
I Chimaev's a good fighter. I can't stand him. I hope he gets his ass beat.
And to be honest, I wouldn't mind seeing Kamaru Usman be the champion at 185 pounds either.
Now, he's fought Strickland back when Strickland was trying to be a welterweight a long time ago, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that Sean Strickland's not the same Sean Strickland today.
He's not, but
You know what I mean?
But that same Sean Strickland has ultimately had his worst performances against high-level grapplers.
Yeah, true enough.
You know what I mean?
True enough. Well, I don't know what else to say about that fight. I think you pretty much broke it down perfectly.
Yeah, I think.
There was another, again, bam with the news. We have Oliveira getting a wicked cut in sparring over his
so
eyebrow and having to pull out of his title fight with Makhachev at the top of the card. And then, of all people, Alexander Volkanovski, the featherweight champ, is stepping up on 10 days short notice to rematch Makhachev in a fight most everybody thinks that he won, which is why even in the UFC's pound-for-pound rankings, he's still ranked above Makhachev, despite technically having lost a split decision to him.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. There's plenty of people that think Islam won that fight as well. He's got a wide fan base. It's probably 50-50 split. It was a great fight.
Yeah.
Problems that I see here, Paul, are on October 5th, there's a video on social media of Alexander Volkanovski out partying at a lake, and his buddies and his gym mates are wanting him to jump into the lake. He's like, I can't. I've got stitches. He's got fucking like 5 stitches above his eyebrow that are so fresh he didn't want to jump in a fucking lake with them. And this was as of October 5th.
Also, which you also have to kind of fold in there. Also, he's coming off a major wrist injury, which he get surgery on his wrist.
He did, yes. And this is 10 days notice.
Also, because this fight originally was supposed to be Volkanovski versus Islam, and he said that he couldn't make it back in time. So I wonder if that's kind of something that had happened, because we had already gotten the announcement that Ilia Topuria and Volkanovski were going to fight early next year.
Right.
And then this all comes down, and then I think it's just with all the circumstances that fold in, I think the first fight, the whole deck was stacked against Volkanovski, and I think even more now the whole deck is stacked against him in this situation.
I mean, the only thing he's got going for him is he doesn't have to cut weight, I'm assuming. Because he doesn't seem like a guy that really gets up too big.
Yeah, but you're also talking about a guy who's coming off surgery, of not training as much. Like, what is he looking like?
Fuck,
He's
I don't know.
Literally, like, the idea that he's coming off the couch is so much more in this situation. Like, he's really coming off the couch.
I mean, I'd be openly rooting for Volkanovski here too. I just feel like that's a tough out, but maybe it's not. Maybe the pressure's gone. Maybe he can just do his thing. He's already fought this guy before. He knows a lot more what to expect now. He's got the advantages of the rematch, the prior experience. He ended that fight. The 5th round ended. He was winning. You know.
Also, something little anecdote is that this is the first rematch between 2 unified champions.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
It'd be fucking wild if he wins. Man, if Usman and Volkanovski both win in Abu Dhabi, I mean, what a night. Because this is home turf.
Yeah.
For Islam and for Chimaev.
Not only that, it's not only home turf, but they're the ones who've been in the gym. They're the ones who've had a full training camp. They're the ones who've, although, it's 2 very different opponents that both of them are facing, I would say, in like game plan wise, I do think that the skill sets in which people believe that Makhachev and Chimaev both have should be able to win a fight against somebody at any level that are coming in on 10 days notice, because people hold both those names up in such high regard.
Yeah.
That if they can't get the job done, I feel like it's even more like, take all the 10-day notice shit out already. These guys on a full camp, in a lot of people's eyes, should be able to beat Volkanovski and Usman But now we're talking 10 days notice. You better make it look good.
I know Makhachev is so much bigger than Volkanovski too.
Yeah, he's way bigger. Yeah.
That's
in
a
frame
noticeable
alone,
size
dude.
difference
Yeah.
between those two men.
Frame alone is just like way different.
Yeah, but Volkanovski, man, he just brought it to him though, man.
And also
in
he
that
was able
fucking fight, bro.
to snuff out all his submission attempts. There was, what was it, the second round of that first fight where we had, I think it was either the first or second, where we had Makhachev fully on Volkanovski's back for over 2.5 minutes and not being able to secure any kind of choke or any kind of submission at all.
Yeah, that's. I mean, the odds here. They're favoring these guys, but not that crazy. I mean, Makhachev right now is averaging around minus 250.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And Volkanovski is running around plus 200 or so on average. While Chimaev is cruising in around minus 270. And we've got Usman's average around plus 220 or so.
Think about I might go put some money on Usman then. Here's the thing.
Dude, Tim Elliott's a plus 400 at some books.
What's the Johnny Walker and Arkalaev?
Plus about 280 average or so, give or take, on Walker. Minus
I like that.
fucking 370, 380, 360 on Magomed.
Dude, I'll take that right now.
Wonder if you could parlay probably Walker, Usman, and Volkanovski for some big bucks.
That might be a good idea. That might be the bet of the weekend.
It might be. I mean, if that cashes, that's going to be pretty
I can check
sweet.
that right now, I'm pretty sure. Because I have Caesar Sportsbook app. Yeah, that's the thing too. Is, man, this idea that they're just so good. You know what I mean? Like, it fucking pisses me off sometimes, man. Like, the level at which they hold Islam and Chimaev sometimes is just like,
I think a lot of it is
makes me.
it's
wanna
just
throw
rabid
up
fan
sometimes.
bases. I mean, I don't like the way the UFC props up a lot of these guys with these very questionable associations and a lot of questionable things outside of the cage, and they just want those ducats. It doesn't matter. The UFC does this over and over again. I mean, we often joke about Brendan Moreno and some of these other guys that they're just please can we have a Mexican champion? They're like they're so thirsty for it, not because they're like we love and we want to promote that culture, it's because they want that money. And they believe these rabid fan bases are there, and they're really thirsty for an Islamic champion, not because they want to promote some sort of equality or whatever. They just want those dollars over in Saudi Arabia as much as they can possibly get in that area. Am I wrong?
I mean, you're right. So with that 3-leg parlay, Walker, Usman, Volkanovski, you're looking at plus 3,700.
Plus 3,700.
Yeah. So put $100 down, you win $3,800.
So a $10 bet's gonna net you about 380. That's worth $10-20 all day long. 20 bet's gonna be what? It's almost 700.
Yeah, 767.
Yeah, that's it right there. That's the bet of the card.
Dude, I'm going to do that.
Volkanovski, Usman, Walker. I got 20 on that all day.
All day.
Yeah, that's well worth the risk.
$20, yeah.
Yeah, on a payout of over 700 if it happens, let's do it.
Yeah,
I'm on it. All right, let's wrap up the show with this final topic because I think there's a lot going on. It's not necessarily the fights so much that deserve to be broken down or discussed in any way, although we will talk about it. But we had this goddamn Misfits boxing card over the weekend.
Yeah.
Where we saw KSI take on Tommy Fury, and we saw Logan Paul take on Dylan Dennis at the top of this card. And I watched the top two fights. I did not pay for that card. You watched the whole thing? Did you pay for it?
No.
Okay, because I didn't, and like
Yes.
our account tweeted or whatever they call it now that it's X, but watch that, and I didn't pay for it, and I still feel ripped off.
Yeah.
These two fights at the top, as a general consensus on the two, were awful.
Mm-hmm.
They were some of the worst combat sports I've ever seen. I've seen better shit at tough man contests in my local fucking area.
Yeah.
And I'm not joking. I'm not trying to talk shit. And I don't understand what's happening here. I don't understand how they're selling out arenas. They're getting these commentators to come on and who can't even call it for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
They got to act like we're watching the second fucking coming of Ali Foreman.
Not only that, just like the level of bias in which they had towards both men who were partnership in Misfit boxing between KSI and Logan Paul. Like,
Yeah, it's a
that's-
Prime event. They're
Yeah.
the faces of Prime. Misfits is KSI shit. And the commentators were, what, sucking their dick?
yeah, might as well have been.
Okay, let's talk about Dylan Dennis versus Logan Paul for a minute. This made no sense from the beginning. I mean, I know they somehow managed to weigh in somewhat near each other, but Logan Paul's a lot bigger dude than Dylan Dennis is.
Yeah, for sure.
Dylan Dennis is striking in his 2 MMA fights was
Abysmal.
some of the worst that I think has ever been seen.
Yeah.
He's a
Abysmal
very
at best.
talented jiu-jitsu artist.
Yeah.
I don't know why he's doing this boxing thing. And he landed, I mean, obviously
Skrilla.
for the money, but I don't get his appeal as an opponent other than the fact the guy's troll game is on point.
Oh yeah.
Like that
Without a
dude,
doubt.
dude, you're a champion on social media, bro.
Yeah.
During the fight, at one point, I think it was the 6th or 5th round or some shit, he landed like 9 punches.
Yeah.
I mean, he hung in there. He didn't get knocked out. He went for a crazy double leg takedown and a choke. He winds up losing by disqualification. Immediately breaks out in the fucking ring.
Mhm.
Security everywhere.
Security started fighting each other.
Security fights each other.
What the fuck was that?
And I mean, he's trying to spin it as what, a moral victory because he's like, I'm not a boxer. I never boxed a day in my life, and you couldn't even fucking hurt me or some shit.
Yeah.
Is that what he was saying?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that shit that we saw with that particular fight?
It was just terrible technique and terrible boxing. Even the highlights of the fight in which people, I guess, like were saying Logan had, were just those like stupid sloppy flurries, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, oh it's gonna happen, oh Logan Paul's going off," and it's like, no, he's not. He's winging wild punches, missing about 90% of them, and glancingly landing about the rest of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just like, not only was the commentary so biased, but they were just almost delusional in what they were watching at the level. Like, even like
Absolutely.
there were some times where Errol Hawani couldn't even, like, who was, he's been a pretty solid catalyst of this stuff getting to this level. But even he couldn't stomach it. He was even saying, like, he was watching, he was like, yeah, that's just real novice level boxing, and that's what it's going to look like.
And
He
people
said
need to
that.
understand what novice level boxing is. He's not just using that term
Yeah.
randomly. That is a classification of amateur boxer.
Mhm.
It's the first
Yeah.
classification of amateur boxer.
Mhm.
Most of these guys that are professional boxers, that's the classification they held when they were like 10 years old.
Yeah.
Fact.
Mm-hmm.
But this fucking shit is selling out. People are buying it on pay-per-view. Meanwhile, Golden Gloves is probably dying at this point.
Yeah.
And when I fought at Golden Gloves in Colorado in the championships, there was 3,000 people in the fucking thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I guarantee you, and I'm not trying to brag, I'm just saying all the boxing on that card was better than anything that was on that Misfits card times 10.
Yeah.
But nobody's going to watch any talented kids do that shit. They weren't then and they're not now.
Well, and also
And this shit's selling shit out and getting treated legitimately.
that's what I was just gonna. And they're trying to legitimize themselves with titles and things like that. Like, the first, like I said, I watched the whole thing. So
Yeah.
Watching the 4 fights before that, you had a lightweight championship fight, a middleweight championship fight, and a light heavyweight championship fight leading into the 2 main events.
So they're getting the
So,
Misfit title or
yeah,
whatever.
they're literally getting belts and handing out
Bro.
belts and like fielding a roster basically of fighters in every weight class and saying that they're the Misfits boxing champion.
This is world champion of the Misfits organization. It's embarrassing. I think, in my opinion, that this is hurting combat sports. This is making a mockery of boxing. It's making a mockery of MMA.
Yeah.
I mean, with this Jake Paul kicking old MMA stars fucking asses left and right, I'm fucking tired of it.
Yeah.
And Tommy Fury, who, I'm sorry, is a shitty boxer,
Yeah.
but he's at least a
At
boxer.
best.
He did well against Jake Paul comparatively. Let's talk about that fight, KSI versus fucking goddamn Tommy Fury.
Hugfest.
It was that was all KSI can do is
Yeah.
wave his arms around and then do this lunging right hand where if he misses, he hugs.
Yeah. And honestly, fucking Tommy Fury, so you know, low level that he was landing it too. Like he
He
knew
did
what
land.
was coming.
Everybody makes a big deal. He landed one clean shot on him in like the second or third round. It was his shining moment of the fight.
Yeah. He knew it was coming, and he still was letting.
Well,
it
Tommy
away.
Fury can't control his emotions, bro. Did
Yeah.
you see how he fought? He fought like fucking Nate Diaz did. Like you've
Yeah.
never seen a jab in your life. Like you
Yeah.
don't know how to do a 1, 2, 3. Like you have no fucking idea how foot movement works.
Yeah. It was terrible.
And that only happens because of emotions. Like Tommy knows this stuff. I mean, I'm not going to say he's like great on a pro level, but you
Yes,
know
he
how to
does
throw a
know.
1, 2, 3, son.
Yeah.
Like, but he gets all emotional in there, and instead he's fighting like a novice fighter would, who's fighting emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying. And and that's why he couldn't fucking put this dude away. And he gets lucky. I turned it off because I thought KSI was going to win. I didn't even. I mean, I watched all 6 rounds, and then I didn't watch the decision. I was like, to say KSI probably didn't give him this shit.
Yeah.
And I just had enough. I was disgusted listening to these commentators talk like we just saw something.
Mm-hmm.
Like something
I'll tell
that
you
you
what.
should feel proud of watching.
The 2 fights below the 2 main card fights with that Slim and Salt Poppy dude, like that was the better fight of the night.
That's
Yeah.
a sad day on a boxing card when that's the best shit you got.
And then below that, the lightweight fight was better than the main event also. And that's
So-
the thing though. It kind of sucks for those guys because like on the undercard you had a kid who was 19 years old who's had his 4th professional fight and actually is like a legitimate boxing prospect and he's fighting on this card. And so when you have those kind of guys not getting the rub they should, instead they're fighting on these misfit cards where everybody is seen as a YouTuber. They're not
Yeah.
seen as a actual prospect. If you're 19 years old and you're a 5-0 pro boxer, I don't care if it's on Misfits or whatever. You have obviously some level of skill. Like at 19 years
Tommy's
old.
10-0.
Yeah, but Tommy's also fucking 30 years old. You know what I mean? Like, what are we talking
He
about?
ain't that old, but yeah, I feel you.
You know what I'm saying? You're a legitimate prospect. You're 19 years old, 5-0
No,
pro,
yeah, I feel
pro
you.
boxing, whether you're fighting on Misfits or regular boxing. But when you are put on these Misfits cards, you're automatically labeled as a YouTube boxer. You know what I mean? And that's just what it is.
I can't deal with these cards anymore. And
This
I
was
mean,
the
I'm
worst
barely
one.
interested. I'm only happy about the fucking Tyson Fury Francis Ngannou fight because I like Francis Ngannou.
Yeah.
And I'm happy that he's going to get a payday instead of getting fucked by the UFC. It's more of the UFC's fault we're getting that. But at least, unlike KSI, it's not like KSI is some mixed martial arts fighter. He's a decorated combat sports athlete or something. He's just
Yeah,
a
no.
fucking YouTuber. He was a
He's
gamer
a
who
guy
then
with
got
followers.
reaction channels
Yeah.
and blew up. I mean, kudos to them for making money with this shit. I mean, the entrepreneurial side of me, I mean, good, you're making money, but I just think it's much like we discussed last week about how the UFC is doing a lot to hurt the sport. I think that hurts combat. People look at that shit and they go, boxing's a fucking joke, man.
Yeah. And it is to a certain extent, because you got to look at these pro boxing, the pro boxing association who actually, fucking, sanction these as pro fights. Like, who would give, a guy like Logan Paul, who's now fucking what, 2-3 or
Logan Paul
2-2?
is, well, no, you're counting his exhibitions. He was 0-1 officially going into this shit.
Oh, was he?
He lost his one
I thought
fight
he was
to
1-1
KSI or
and 1
whatever.
because he had like a draw with KSI too, right?
Yeah, a couple of those were like not sanctioned.
Hmm.
His official record was that.
But yeah, like I said, it's just
I think, or is that KSI's? I don't know. Honestly, bro, I don't pay enough attention to these fuckers to know that shit.
Yeah.
But I know several of them were exhibitions, and only a couple wound up being sanctioned for those two fucks. But
Now, if we're gonna enter this realm, do you think with that performance that Jake Paul will be knocking on KSI's door to fight?
oh yeah, that's the next logical thing they're gonna do. What do these guys have left?
Yeah.
Jake Paul's running out of retired old men to beat up that are
Yeah.
MMA fighters that don't know how to box.
Mhm.
I don't know who the fuck's gonna want to fight KSI.
Yeah.
I mean, didn't he just lose to that fucking other dude, or he had his shit turned over because he knocked him out with his elbow,
Yeah.
dog. Like that's the only time I'd seen him. I tuned in for that one to watch him knock a man out with his elbow,
Mhm.
and then act like he didn't know that,
Yeah.
and then parade around like he won, even though he knew goddamn well you knocked him out with a fucking elbow, bro. What do you have a loss of feeling in your body? Like, come on. So, I don't know, dude. I don't know. They'll probably fight each other, and it'll probably be some big deal, and it'll be like the third biggest pay-per-view event of next year, and I'll just feel sad.
Yeah, that's really what it
And they'll
seems
laugh
like
all
it's
the way
gonna
to the
boil down
bank
to.
at guys like me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for real.
Well, we got we brought it up again. We got the goddamn Fury and Gano shit now around the corner.
Yeah.
I mean,
2
does
weeks.
this joke of a display hurt people's interest in what is essentially another almost celebrity misfit boxing look, where we've got an MMA champion making his pro boxing debut against the best of his era?
I don't know, because I think it's a little bit more legitimized.
I think it is too, but I do admit to my bias. I don't know. When Ngannou looked so bad in that open workout, I don't know. I mean, this is one I will order. I'm going to get that pay-per-view. I do want to see it. But I still think that Ngannou's going to wind up getting smoked here. I just don't know if this sucked some of the interest or life away from that or not.
I don't
Probably
know.
not. I don't know if the same audience is tuning in. Like, who's the Jake Paul KSI audience has got to be made up of their YouTube following mostly, and these
Absolutely.
young kids.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, you could tell just based on the broadcast, they were all about all the different guys who were celebrities that were in the crowd and highlighting them and interviewing them, even though none of them really watch fighting.
Well, let's hope that maybe with the Jake Paul KSI bout that we're going to get, mark our words, sometime next year, that maybe interest will dwindle off with this. 'Cause I don't know what they'd have left after that.
I don't either.
Eventually you run out of people that aren't real boxers. And a real boxer not named Tommy Fury. I mean, Tommy Fury beat them already. Are they going to fuck with anybody better than him?
No.
I mean, the guy's got wins over both now. Were they going to go get a guy that could smoke Fury? I doubt it. So that's the end of that.
Mike Perry. Those are the only other option, maybe.
And I was surprised at that thing, too, because Logan's just a lot bigger than Mike Perry, too. But whatever.
Yeah.
Both these guys pick on guys a lot smaller than them. It's
Yeah.
weird.
Not surprised.
Well, the highlight's definitely going to be the big UFC 294. To sum up, we're both about to go head to the sports book
Yeah.
and grab that three-way parlay: Volkanovski, Walker, and Usman. Good luck, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.